that can be done for you. Better living through technology. Come on. I mean, doesn't everybody want to have an oil change instead of blood? I mean, come on. It's so much easier.
That just gives me images of like the whole racks and inspections and chassis, and I don't need that kind of, in-depth, checkup.
I totally want to see one of those car lifts lifting up Paul by himself. Him going, is this really necessary? This seems excessive.
Well, howdy, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Paul E. Cooley. Joining me is Veronica Jaguar and Terry Mixon, as always, and of course, you wonderful people in chat.
But there may be other people.
There are people lurking. I look at the statistics, and at any one time, there's like 30 or 40 people watching, but there's only a few signed in. There's even fewer that get on here and chat. I'm not sure why. Maybe just because they have good taste and know they don't want to get any of chat on them. That's possible.
That's probably it. Or
That's
they're
probably it.
multitasking, and you can just have something, up and watching, and we have scared Terry away.
I've noticed this. The show just started, and he like disappeared.
It's like, that's it. I'm done. I'm gone.
He's probably still listening. Oh no. This is a new kitty, guys.
It's a new baby.
Aww.
This is Julius. I'll sit for just a second before I take him back in. He's actually in isolation, and he only arrived yesterday, so he has not met any of the other kitties.
He is sniffing the air.
What is it, boy? Oh, the headbutt. He says, wait, who's that? Up there's this.
And then,
I love bears. Just like, what? Who?
like,
Well, folks, if you're playing the drinking game, you're off to a really good start here.
that's not Bear. That was Castor, and so that's Pollux, I think, if I remember. Pollux is the fluffy one.
Oh, okay. I can't keep them all straight in my head. It's hopeless.
That was Castor.
So
Castor's the
obviously,
fluffy one.
Castor's the fluffy one.
Okay.
we should just go ahead and ask Terry how the hell he's doing, because it's pretty obvious what's going on here.
Well, one of our listeners that lives in our area is moving and allergic to poor Mr. Julius. So I agreed to go ahead and accept him into the mix and pounce. He arrived yesterday, so he's still in isolation.
Isolation. It's a great song by Joy.
He's a very friendly cat.
Well, that's good to hear. Apart from cats, what has been going on with you?
More car trouble. My radiator's leaking. It's going to have to go back into the shop on Monday. Just got the darn thing back. I wonder if they did something.
At some point, this car's going to get so old that they open up the engine compartment to touch it to maintain something, and shit's just going to start falling apart.
Well, the radiator is actually relatively new. I don't know that they had to do anything with hoses or anything while replacing the timing belt. I'm not sure what all was involved with that process, but now it's leaking a little bit. I'm not sure. We'll see. I've had my mechanic for 25 years. If it's something they did, he'll own up to it and he'll fix it. If it's not, then I'll have to do whatever to fix it. You can't run a car without having cooling.
There is that detail, yeah.
Every time I hear about your truck, I think of a Skinny Puppy live album called "Ain't It Dead Yet."
Well, it is a Ford,
Song.
What about you, V? What have you been up to?
Gosh, let's see. Writing, outlining. I got through the second act of the outline, so that's always good. And auditions. I submitted an audition for a 13-book military romance series.
Military romance?
Yes.
Is it sci-fi or general?
No, general. So if you think about it, it's where your protagonist, usually male, sometimes female later in the series, they're part of a company or they're part of a private security detail.
Hmm.
But there's a military aspect to
Okay.
it. So they were looking for someone who could do a wide range of female voices, and I'm like, oh, I got that right here. So we'll see. The author liked the audition, and they're waiting to hear back from some other people they auditioned. But if it works out, I will be booked for a while, and that will be marvelous.
That would be great.
And it's the sort of gig where I don't have to worry about the post-production. So
That's
it's
even better.
yeah, I don't have to worry about interfacing with stuff. I just get to move on, and then I'll be starting recording a football romance. So again, romance where your main character, usually male, although sometimes female, is in this case a college football player, a wide receiver. So,
Hmm.
so yeah.
Not the quarterback? Can't believe it. I guess that's too
I think
cliche.
the quarterback's story gets done in the prequel, but it's the what?
I never would have dreamed, and it really speaks to my ignorance more than anything else, a naivete. I just would never have dreamed that that was going to be a thing.
It's if you think about it, people may have a certain preference or idea that comes with certain professions or certain areas, like, oh, I want to read a story with a cowboy and, as the male character, ooh, or like a firefighter or the UPS guy or, whatever. And, there's sports ones. And so there's football, there's hockey, there's, I have a series I enjoy reading that just pulls from, I think one's a baseball player, one's a hockey player,
Yeah, you
one's a
told me
music
about that
star.
one.
So it's story is still story.
No, I'm
And
not going to disagree
yeah,
with that. Like I said, it has more to do with my naivete and ignorance. It just never would have clicked with me that that was a thing.
and the thing is that readership and that listenership is voracious.
Oh yeah, because they
So
have very few relatively titles to choose from.
there are a lot. It's
Yeah,
just
but
they listen
compared
or
to the
read,
broader area.
I guess. But it's more like they'll go through these books. Like there are these people who listen to these audiobooks one a day.
That's excessive.
That is excessive.
Yeah, so just, if you've got, you got a coworker who's always listening to audiobooks, watch their expression. What scenes are they listening to?
All right, good to know.
Yeah. What about you? As you, expel stuff into the air around
The
yourself?
Phlegmmeister.
Well, last week, or I guess it was Monday, my parents came down with COVID, and they're 82, so this was a little bit of a concern. So had to go through and help them out with some stuff, and ended up taking my mom to the hospital on Thursday because of breathing issues. But we got all that kind of solved, made sure she wasn't dying, and they kicked us out and sent us home. So then Friday morning, I wake up absolute feeling like shit. And guess what? I'm COVID positive. So between the 2 trips to the hospital, the wreck, and then taking mom, and then having to do stuff for the parents and everything else, it was bound to happen eventually. And so here we are. So I'm on antivirals. I'm on my 2nd course of prednisone because I had one because I was getting pneumonia after the wreck. And now I'm getting hit again. So if I hulk out and start throwing shit, you'll know exactly what happened. Just telling you right now. So I'm here with COVID, a little bit of a fever, talking to you lovely people because otherwise I would really miss my chat with Terry and V. And the other thing is, what would you people do without me on a Saturday show? I mean, come on. What would you do? So hopeless. Couldn't get it in Vegas like the rest of us. I really am shocked that we didn't come
too.
down. I mean, I came down with something, but it lasted like 12 hours and it was gone. It was.
And I had the flu for 3 weeks
Yeah,
that I
you
caught
were
in
screwed.
Vegas.
Yeah.
I had the usual dry, just kind of like dry throat and all that. And the thing is, when I flew, usually when I'm on a plane, I'll make sure I have a mask. But there are a ton of narrators I hung out with, and a lot of them came down with COVID. I'm like, I was like handshaking and hugging. So what? I was like, so yay, immune system.
Yeah,
I did something right.
my immune system's trash, and it held up. I don't know how the hell I escaped any of that, but we escaped it, which is great. So now I've finally been hit. I can tell you that if you haven't had COVID, it sucks. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. Is no
So
bueno.
I am here, and we are here because we had a topic.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, we're going to talk about Neosporin,
No, we were not talking about Neosporin.
which is the white ointment that I couldn't remember the name of earlier.
Neosporin, which you couldn't remember? I was thinking like this is like big crazy.
No, I couldn't remember the name of it. Yeah.
Not even anything exciting. Just Neosporin.
Just something right over the counter. I know, right?
Howdy, Michelle.
Wow.
I just okay. All right. Stop. Go back. Okay, I'm a little spaced, but let's try this again. Last night, I asked my fellow co-hosts, "Oh, anybody got something they want to talk about tomorrow?" And what I got back was something from Mr. Nixon.
I did.
What did you say, Mr. Nixon?
I said I want to talk about how to make memorable, believable characters. Because if you read some of these stories that are out there, sometimes you'll run into these characters, you go, this guy is like somebody that's doomed to die in 3 minutes in a Paul E. Cooley story.
And it's the main character, and he should be a red shirt.
And he's the main character.
This is like the case of where you got the DM who's running the game, and they describe some little throwaway character, but everybody latches onto that character. They're like, no, you must save so-and-so. It's like, so-and-so is going to get eaten by goblins on the next turn. He's not supposed to be saved. No, you must save him.
You always have a problem when the red shirt is more popular than the main character. That is an issue. That is definitely an issue. Unless it's supposed to be that way. Which actually, see, that sounds like an interesting story to me. The main character is like the most boring oatmeal vanilla person of all time. And just completely superficial, has all the is as deep as a puddle. And all the people around that person are just these amazingly cool and interesting people. I like that idea for some reason. I think that would be pretty funny.
But then is Senor Oatmeal then really the main character? If he's not that...
That is the true question. Or is it more that he's just our narrator?
I could see Senor Oatmeal being the narrator, but it would be a real challenge to write that story.
I think it'd be kind of cool, though. I think it'd be kind of cool. Well, basically, all you have to do is have Mr. Oatmeal, or Mrs. Oatmeal. Oatmeal. Whatever this Oatmeal person is. Stop it, V.
Okay. You need to go ahead and not try to pigeonhole them into Mr. or Mrs. It's just Oatmeal. We'll just stick with Oatmeal, whoever they are.
Okay, look, this Oatmeal thing. We call them a thing. Isn't that just kind of neutral on everything, huh? Oatmeal.
Nutritionally neutral.
Nutritionally
Folks, this is the sound of a conversation slowly veering off.
Never has something so serious been said so dumbly.
You talking to me?
Jesus Christ.
So you think I'm funny? Is that like a clown funny? Do I make you laugh?
Okay, Pesci. Yeah, Rick, he's the glue that holds them all together. You got it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think it'd really be an interesting story to write. If Oatmeal doesn't give any details about Oatmeal, Oatmeal remains, regardless of how complex Oatmeal might be. I can't believe I'm having this conversation about Oatmeal.
But one of the things that the bits of writing advice that comes out is you have to make characters that people care about. And if you
Yeah.
don't describe them, or if they're not, if that character can't engage your audience, are they a good character?
No.
Even
Well-
if they have a name that is gonna, turn on a giggle fit or something.
It's an interesting conceit, but I would warn you off from that, Paul. It's going to be a mess of a story.
Probably. I still think it would be kind of fun to try. There's a oh God, what's the book? Pacos Story by Larry Heineman. Is Larry Heineman? I think it's Larry Heineman. I can't remember. The narrators are the ghosts of his unit that died in Vietnam. So it's a collective that's narrating the story. Paco is the only one who survived his unit, and so the ghosts are telling the story. And the ghosts, because of the way they're doing this, and they always refer to themselves as we. There's no I. There's no identification of what they are. It is the way they talk about something. It is the way they present an issue, directly related or not related to Paco, that gives them and makes them interesting, even though we don't get any real details about what that we is. We get little slices and segments of what happened, but most of Paco's story takes place post-Vietnam. So we don't get a lot of the things that come into play that you would think of in military fiction. A lot of that stuff, as I remember anyway, is kind of off to the side. I mean, we see it and we don't see it. But the characters are all extremely lively. But because the narrator, because of what they talk about, because of what they observe, or because of what they drive Paco to observe, they have their own personality. And they become a character even without being a character. They're completely nameless.
But they're not the main character.
No, but they drive a lot of what's there, and they tell us more about Paco than Paco ever could.
So they're the Greek chorus.
That is another good way to put it.
Okay, because in that case, that's just another narrative tool to help set the scene and put flavor to it. So yeah, that entity can be memorable, but they're not the ones that the story is about.
No.
Excuse me, we're hearing purring in the microphone because somebody is demanding attention.
There's a lot of drinking going on today.
Holy crap, that cat is loud.
I can't hear it. My ears are.
Oh, it's
stopped up.
there. There's a trill, and there.
Oh, now we're bitey. Which one is this, Terry?
This is Leo.
Leo. Get the hell off me.
I have purred and nommed. My job is done.
So, ignoring the fact that we're talking about narrators who are not characters and vice versa. You talked at once upon a time, Terry, about it like an action submarine movie or something where the
Hunter Killer,
where the dialogue was wooden and all the characters were about.
Everything was two-dimensional. Everything. The characters, the plot in a lot of ways, the story that's being told. It was just, not a great movie, except for the fact that it was the perfect action movie in that it hit all the action beats at the right time, and you could just screen out everything else and say, oh, action beats. I can actually see the action beats happening in this movie.
Because we stripped everything away, all that's left is the action beats.
Pretty much.
Did it hurt the movie?
I saw it in the theater, and I enjoyed it because I recognized very quickly that it wasn't going to, be, the top of the line movie. And I latched onto the story beats and I went, all right, what am I going to learn from this? And so I sat there watching it from a learning perspective, and I had a good time watching it.
Okay, but I don't think that is necessarily going to translate into a book.
I would imagine that it would not.
I mean, when you read a lot of action stories these days in the pulpish market, are they do the characters leap off the page? Are the
Yeah.
characters kind of afterthoughts?
With the good ones, they leap off the page.
All right. Well, that said, how do you make a character leap off the page?
You have to make them unique. They have to be somebody that has drive and determination of a kind. Somebody's going to disagree with me and say that you don't have to have a character that is pushing the story forward. And I'm going to stand by that and say that the best characters make the story move forward because they have desires and wants
Oh
that.
God, you need to read Candide. But anyway, keep going.
But in any case, yeah, character drives everything else for my stories. And I believe that in the really good stories that other people write, it's the same.
What about you, V?
I think I'm one of the things that I've been told very similar to what you said, Terry, is that the story cannot act on the character. The character has to act to further the story. So if you get to a point where the character is sitting there and everything is happening to them, then that's not a good character. That's not a good story. They have to have action.
It's
And
passive.
yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, you may as well just, throw them to the zombie horde and find somebody else. What, you've never heard the thing of how you determine if something is an active voice or passive voice? If it's in passive voice, you can always have the whole sentence and then just add by zombies at the end of it. It's in the passive voice.
He was killed by zombies.
So they killed him. You can't put by
you can't put by zombies on there. That would make sense.
Doesn't really work.
Unless you say they killed him. The zombies,
Yeah. Death by zombies.
That's not completely unrelated to the thing that I learned at work is you should never say something to a coworker that you can actually add the words "you idiot" to the end of.
Because it'll inevitably slip out.
No, because then they'll still pick up on it even if you don't say the words.
Oh. The subtly implied.
Yeah, there's a level of sarcasm that you try and get away with because it ultimately becomes just passive aggressive assholery, but still, every once in a while you're just kind of like, how did you get this job?
Are you sure you? No.
Oh, William says there are some horror stories where the character is reactive. There's a short story like that I should try to remember. I would say that there's actually more than just horror that is where the character is reactive because they have no choice. In other words, the environment or what they're caught up in is pushing them. It's pushing them and pushing them. It's they may have options and they have choices, but the thing is they're being rushed along. I mean, a natural disaster movie, for instance, the characters are getting pushed. They're getting pushed. They have to either make decisions and have, or they're just going to be dead.
Right, but that's still they have to make the decisions. I either act,
yes,
or I'm dead.
But they are reacting to the environment around them.
The way that I see movies like that, let's look at one that I saw a couple of years ago, San Andreas with The Rock in it. Not the most memorable movie of that particular genre that I've ever seen. The calamity acted much like the ticking clock does in a thriller. It fulfilled the same sort of role that shortened the decision loop that the characters could be part of and forced them to act. It didn't drive them to do any particular thing, but it made them not sit on their ass. They had to do something, whatever it was, right then.
Right.
Yeah, that becomes part of the motivation because we got a problem. That's just standard plot issue there. But yeah, I can understand what you're saying, and at the same time, it's God, Firing Point.
I will hope that Firing Point was a better novel than Hunter Killer was as a movie.
Shouldn't it become its own character?
Well, in a way,
it does.
Your monster or your disaster, if it's ongoing, it is a character because you have to be able to describe it, and it doesn't get completely
Anthropomorphized.
Thank you, that word.
You're welcome.
But it still has action, and it still has, if it's the villain, it's the villain. And then you can have a secondary villain that could be complicating things.
Well, since you mentioned volcanoes, there's actually a movie with Tommy Lee Jones. I think it's actually called Volcano. I think Anne Heche is in it. I don't remember. Anyway, the magma that was coming up in LA because of the Brea tar pits, it's a stupid disaster movie. What do you expect? It was made in the 90s, I think.
There were a whole bunch of volcano-flavored movies in the 90s.
Yeah, this is around the same time that Pierce Brosnan came out.
Yeah, that one I remember.
96, 97, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, notwithstanding, the magma almost became a character in its own right, because of every time that they showed it, the way it moved, the sound it made, and everything else, it became the Blob. And the Blob, talk about reactive. The Blob doesn't do anything besides blob things. It doesn't think, it doesn't know, but it has its own personality from the standpoint of watching what it does. Mm-hmm. So I always felt like that when Volcano, Dante's Peak. Yeah, There you go. Yeah, lava runs down Wilshire Boulevard. Yeah. If I remember correctly, tell me if I'm wrong, Rick. Didn't they take all the city buses in LA and block off a street with them? I think the story can be moved forwards by both the main character and the events. In a good story, all main characters, villains too, have depth in that supply of the conflict. Yeah, absolutely.
Just remember, no one looks in the mirror and sees a villain.
True.
Wow. How many DC and Marvel movies have you actually watched?
Well, do they see themselves as villains? Maybe the crazy ones like the Joker do. I don't know. But for any realistic story, you're not going to have your villains see themselves as a villain. They're not snidely whiplash twisting their mustache around and figuring out who they're going to tie to the train tracks.
Look,
they are doing something for what they see as good in their view, their own twisted view.
I would say lately, from some of the books that I've read, that I think the mustache twirling idiot is becoming more the norm than the exception.
That's not a good thing.
No, I don't think it is.
It's not, but given certain current events and the decisions of real life people, sometimes I personally wonder if the mustache twirling villain isn't at about your standard IQ and operating capacity. So
just remember, there are certain real life events that you can try to portray in your novels and people will go, that's unbelievable.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
couldn't possibly happen.
That
level of mustache twirling stupidity is probably not something you want in your novel.
Oh Christ. Anyway,
unless of course, you're actually going to take it into the level of being so outrageous in doing it that it becomes, I'm not sure the word that I would use there.
Absurd?
Yeah, a level of absurdity that you're going to get with that.
That's why I'm telling you guys, you got to read Candide. If you want to talk about, and this is weird. V, have you read that book?
Yes, I was forced to read it in sophomore year of high school. Thank you very much.
Forced. I take it you didn't like it.
I was 13. What do you want?
Let's consider that expression.
That's
no,
too young to read that.
All that I just remember is the half butt cheek thing. Okay, that's all that I remember. That, and
it's good to see that you remembered the important part.
Well, no, the important part is not any of the details. It is the travesty that is the journey to get from the beginning to the end, which basically Candide doesn't move at all. The entire world moves around him, but he doesn't move at all. So it was a very, very stunning indictment of the idiocy that the court was engaging in regarding optimism and regency rather than reality and economics. Matt says apparently the writers of CSI based most of the stories on real events, and they had to remove loads of real events because they were too unbelievable. Yeah.
Sadly, with CSI, watching that show, you look at if you know any of the level of science that might go into some aspect that they're doing, and you know it intimately, you're going, no, that's not real. What you just said, every single word is wrong.
And yet you're being rewarded for it.
Well, here's another question though, and I had to deal with this in Gears Inferno. I had to try and make that job interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the idea of going in and modeling fire and flames and all this kind of stuff and how it affects stuff, I looked at what it is. It is a fucking tedious, hellish job. But I had to make it interesting. So I changed it. I made it a little bit more interesting, did some forward stuff with technology, but I actually did download the same goddamn software they used to model fires and fucked around with it to get an idea of what was involved there. If I tried to make every single detail of that to where somebody would say, oh, yeah, that's how that works, rather than somebody saying, yeah, that's maybe how it works, or that's totally fucking wrong, would the standard audience member who doesn't know shit about that be able to stay engaged past those 3 pages of explaining how this works?
I can understand that. Let me give you a specific example from CSI. As somebody that is a recreational gun shooter, I know a fair bit about ballistics.
Okay, yeah.
And they were having one of the things where someone was shot and there was a car wreck and they're dead in their car. And they go out there and the rifle bullet is still in their neck. And I'm like,
what caliber?
It was a fairly big bullet. And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. And so my brain immediately went to my brain immediately told me what the answer was. The only way that it could not have penetrated that far is if the shooter was a ludicrous distance away, because bullets lose speed as they travel. But you can't aim in the middle of the night at a car driving 40 miles an hour and expect to hit someone from some ludicrous distance. So I said, this is an accidental shooting. And yet they spent 45 minutes working through everything in their scientific way. They go, oh, this must be an accidental shooting.
But average schmuck on the couch didn't get that.
Maybe not, but I'm like, come on, really?
Average schmuck on the couch didn't get
If you are portraying that in a story and you drag it out to that level, it's going to be obvious that you're portraying your investigators as idiots that have never seen a gun shoot in their life.
That may be true.
Or they
remember.
are assuming, they always say, like, visualize your reader, visualize your listener. In that case, visualize your viewer. What does your standard viewer look like? And maybe their standard viewer only has so much knowledge of, that material.
I will buy that, but let's ask the question.
But yeah.
Is there a point where you've dumbed it down too much?
Yeah. Oh, because then it looks like you've insulted your reader. And nobody likes to...
Have you met our readers?
Sometimes. Yes, I have.
And while they may be bizarre and unusual and slightly depraved, they're not stupid.
No, they're not stupid.
So, I mean, you have to give people the benefit of the doubt when you're writing and creating characters. You have to put enough stuff in there for it to be believable. Enough stuff in there for people to like the character, and then leave enough unsaid so that people can fill in the gaps for themselves.
Yeah. No, I get that. When you're talking about people's jobs and what they do, and obviously for police, procedural, detective, anything like that, or even in military or action thrillers like David Wood writes, there's a certain level of detail you're expected to have right. Not everything, because if you include everything, you will bore the ever-loving fuck out of the reader. So you choose the exciting tidbits of the job. Like, for instance, You want to tell them about a regulator on a scuba tank because you're planning on fucking that thing up later. And so they need to understand what that is. So there's details like that that are good to put in there. And those work to kind of smooth things out a little bit, I think, personally.
Yeah. Yeah,
Terry
you
needs
put
to
in.
mute himself.
There is a show that my wife. I'm going to drag us back to character
Oh God.
because we kind of wandered off topic there. My wife is watching a show called Poker Face.
Oh, I haven't seen it, but I know her.
It is a mystery that anybody that has ever seen it says this was inspired by Columbo
Right,
to a
yeah.
degree because of the way the character solves mysteries. It's I just got this one other question.
One more thing.
It's the same dogged determination solving the thing down there. She's got a personality that is just a mile wide. She's got this huge personality, and that makes that character wonderful to watch do her
absolutely.
thing.
And that's Natasha Lyonne in the main character.
I think it is,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. I mean, I don't think she cannot create a small character.
No, she's not capable.
Even when she was in Orange and the New Black, that character, I think it was she wasn't necessarily in the main track of things, but that character, but it's like you could not help but fall in love with that character for as bizarre as she was.
Russian Doll. Russian
Yeah.
Doll. First season. I haven't seen the second season, but if you haven't seen that, Terry?
No.
Holy fucking shit. I don't know what she's like in Poker Face, but in Russian Doll, she is one of the most carnal, foul-mouthed human beings that has ever existed. And you sit there, for me, I was just sitting there horrified and laughing my ass off at the same time. Because it's just she is. I think you're right. I don't think she's capable of acting small.
That is how you make a character that you need to make for your novels. Is they have to be in their own way bigger than life. They have to be the one that helms the story because it could not possibly be any other way.
Doesn't that get a little bit more complicated when you're writing soap opera, space opera, and things like that, where you have a lot of characters?
No. Well, okay, so space opera, and I'll travel to space western. Firefly.
Yeah.
Every single person on that ship is a big personality.
Yeah.
And
in their own way.
Even if they don't appear to be.
Right. And they in the smaller vignettes where it's only, two characters, maybe three characters, each character is distinct. Each character has a specific arc, and they move through. And so I don't think you're limited by genre on this.
Let me take one from the opposite end of the spectrum from Firefly. Let's go to David Weber's Honor Harrington universe, where you have the cast of thousands, and you're always jumping from ship to ship and person to person. And the way he does it is each one has their commanding officer or whoever's in charge of that particular section that they're looking at. They're big in their own way. They may not be, I'm not the captain, I'm the tactical officer. But, I'm good at my job, and I have my own personality, and I stand out because this is what I am and who I am.
There are ways I try and work that into, like a lot of characters in Derelict. I try and give them all something unique for them to be, even if they're just ground pounders, right? There's got to be something about them that is memorable, or there's no point. And I know I hit it right, because in the third book, when something happens, I got a lot of comments and a lot of shit for what I did in the third book. So I think it's very important for that. Mildred says there's only one issue with having a lot of big personalities, that not everyone in the group is a big personality. So how do you not lose those people when writing?
You make them sly. You make them a bit more subdued, but you give them a sharpness and a competence that is not in the big personality type.
I was thinking in Firefly about Kaylee, for instance.
Yes.
She's very soft-spoken and very demure, unless she's with you on one-on-one. If she's with you one-on-one or a small group, then she can kind of be herself, but she's more reactive to what's going on and will plug herself in there. But I don't remember in the show her going out of her way to start conversations with people. And I think that's kind of interesting. But when she did have stuff to say, it was very, very important and very funny. And part of that was naivete. Part of it was the fact that she's so brash, whereas some of the other people get really not offended, but embarrassed because of how honest she is.
Right.
Oh, hi, Marnin.
David Chen in The Last Hunter, he is a former intelligence analyst. He is a fairly subdued person, but he's a spy. And his wife is a flamboyant spy. She was an operative with intelligence, and so they're quite the pair. And writing them so that she is the bigger personality and he is the competent one in the background, that he's the chess master. He's moving the pieces. It's an interesting way of writing them differently, but they're both powerful in their own way. And Paul is discussing things with his lungs.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's all good. Yeah, I was thinking, I swear. Now it's gone.
That's okay.
Been there, done that all the time.
It happens the older you get. It happens more frequently.
There's also a neighbor cat out my window that is stalking squirrels.
Let's go get it. Let's go get it.
Oh, God.
You know what? Those are chunky squirrels, so if she does catch them, she just better not leave the carcass in the yard. So, but anyway, so characters.
What? If you're not aspirating caffeine, you're doing it wrong.
You obviously need a coffee mister.
Excuse me?
A coffee nebulizer?
A coffee nebulizer. There you go.
I don't know. Do you really need that all up in your nose?
I have no idea what that would do to my lungs, but I'm sure it was not good.
Yes, but think how well it would absorb through your sinus tissues.
That's another thing I'm really concerned about. If I got caffeine going straight into my alveoli, I think I'll just explode. Oh, God, there's cocaine diluted in that mug.
And here we go, back to Cocaine Bear.
Coffee nebulizer. There you go.
Pew, pew. Sorry.
All right, all the characters are on drugs, just like our host.
Right, memorable characters.
Oh, God.
Quirks are another aspect you can use to make your characters memorable.
Yep.
Going back to Columbo, his demeanor, that was his quirk. There was another monk who was OCD to the point of ridiculousness, and that was his character.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually, if you think about it, without his partner, he was completely unable to function. Without his duenna, he just really wasn't able to function without somebody basically to lead him around and keep him on track, which gave her a great personality too. I guess I'm talking about the first and second season before they flipped over to a new duenna. I don't remember her name. Do you guys not know what that term means?
No.
You don't?
Not off the top of my head.
Wow. Can't believe this. As I remember, a duenna is the woman who escorts the young ladies around the men and etc. Thought that was a French thing. Anyway, regardless, that's one of the things that makes that entire system work is because you have his leash holder, whoever that happens to be, who keeps him on the straight and narrow. has got her own great personality that meshes and vibrates and is so discordant against Monk's own. And that's part of the bit, right? That's what turns it into a buddy cop thing. That's what turns it into the odd couple. That's what makes it so much more fun, because you have this really great mind that is so fucking broken. And then you have this other person who seems to slowly and intimately understand what is going on there, even if they don't understand necessarily why. And that is a great setup with those characters. Those are the kind of characters you can read about for 20 books. Because things are always changing, the personnel levels. As long as they don't do that.
Don't pull a Castle. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Mulder and Scully.
Yeah, Mulder and Scully.
Yeah.
Did they ever get together? I didn't know that they had gotten together.
Did. Not in the show, though. Well,
Not in the
yeah,
show, it was in the movie.
I didn't see the movie, so
No.
that explains why.
Was it
in
on the
season
show?
5, because she had his kid. Or season 6. I can't
I don't know
fucking
about that.
remember.
I don't remember that.
That's the end.
Dialing the Wayback Machine way back, let's talk about Remington Steele.
Oh, wow. We are going back. Well, I mentioned Pierce Brosnan earlier, so why not?
Remington Steele, for those that are not familiar with it, they had Pierce Brosnan as the face of being a great detective.
Oh, yeah.
But he was not a great detective. It was the female character that was the brilliant one, that was the behind-the-scenes detective. And that's a way of kind of flipping expectations around and then using those flipped expectations to make those characters stand out.
I mean, it wasn't even just her. It was basically everybody who worked at the defective agency.
The defective agency. There's a title for you now. The such and such defective agency.
That's just wow. Have some more drugs, Paul. Detective agency. The other people that were there provided the support for his stupidity, for his lavish-looking lifestyle, and for her to actually do the engagement. So yeah, he just became the face. And of course, this is when that show start, back in like 83 or something like that.
It's been a while. I don't remember exactly.
So
when.
it's still pretty much set in a pretty misogynist society for a private detective. I can totally see that being a problem, which is why she invented that persona, and then he showed up. So there you go. Oh, silk stocking?
I'm not sure that he showed up to fill the persona that he was doing. I think they were each getting something out of that deal.
I'm not even going to go into that statement. I'm not going to try and dissect that statement.
I'm not trying to make it into a weird statement. I'm just saying that he wanted something out of that relationship, and she wanted somebody like him to be the stand-in.
Yeah,
so
he needed a job.
I think that may have been it. It may have been something along that lines.
Oh yeah, Moonlighting. Moonlighting is the other one, but that was Brett.
These are both so before my time. I'm sorry.
Brett brought up silk stockings, and I'm like, that is a completely different kind of thing. That is totally more about banging than the actual mysteries. Come on, that was what, a USA program. That was all Skinemax kind of stuff. Come on, Moonlighting was such a bizarre show because it never took itself seriously. They would constantly break the fourth wall. They would do all sorts of crazy shit in that show. And I didn't really watch much of it. I only saw a couple of episodes, but it's you can't really compare that thing to any other show in my humble estimation because it's so far out there.
What? If it was in 1982, I was 4. I was watching Muppet Show, okay?
And Brett says it didn't hurt Lucifer either. Yeah, it fucking
Lucifer.
totally did.
Oh my gosh, Lucifer! Ignoring where they went with the show there, his character was so bizarre in the way that it did everything. You're just watching it going, what is he going to say next? It's like watching Deadpool pretend to be normal.
No, it's Deadpool trying to be normal. The difference is that Lucifer doesn't know what normal is. He has no concept of taking sympathy, empathy, or understanding that people can have hurt feelings. He thinks everybody should operate like him, which is he doesn't give a shit. And so he imprints that on everybody, and it is extremely shocked when he doesn't know how to human, when he realizes he doesn't know how to human.
Watching him over the seasons change slight bit by slight bit is amusing.
Yeah, they just should never have fucked. Or she should never have found out he was Lucifer. That destroyed the whole goddamn show.
Yeah, I think that was a bad call on their part.
Yeah.
It changed the dynamic. Never change a dynamic that's working for you.
Unless you're about to end the series and then go for it.
Well, that and the promise of something possibly happening is often way better than it actually happening. It's better to sit there and have the tension than just to give in to the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I just have certain thoughts about sexual tension, and it just for those kinds of stories where you have that buddy cop, it gets so messed up the moment you start going into that. And I think we talked about this last time is you kind of deal with it. It already came up and we decided we're not interested. We tried it and it was a disaster and we're never doing that again. And we just kind of got over it. Or, wow, I'd really love to have sex with this person and they'd really love to have sex with me, but both of us are too afraid of what it would do or too afraid to admit it to one another. That makes the tension that keeps going, I think.
Yes.
And the moment you do something to alleviate that, it changes the characters and the relationship drastically to the point where it may no longer be capable of living up to the promise it first set.
Yeah, and if you fulfill that, if you answer that question, what would happen if they, and then once that's answered, you don't have something else coming behind it, then there's no other reason on a character basis to keep watching.
Yeah. If you think about the original Law and Order, okay, that show is very character driven, but we get such little tiny slices of what's going on. Those characters could essentially have an entire romantic relationship and we'd hardly get a beat of it because those things just did not enter into that kind of show. But even so, there were certain instances where that even in those little slices, you had pieces of sexual tension between the DA and the psychologist and things like that, or maybe one of the female detectives and a male detective. There were those moments. They weren't defining, they were realistic, and they were never, from my knowledge anyway, consummated. But they did at least address it, or at least say, okay, this is kind of a thing here, even if we don't actually deal with it. I just find that so much better than if, obviously if part of the story is for these people to end up together, that's one thing. But in these typical buddy cop stuff, it just doesn't work for me
because
personally.
once it happens, it's no longer a buddy cop.
Right.
You've changed it. You can't go back to just being friends in that situation unless like I said, unless there's something else that's holding the story together, and there's something else that is defining that relationship between characters.
Brett says, what if they manged, but she didn't know he was the devil? Honestly, I don't think that would have made things any better. Unless they banged and she said, wow, that was a horrible mistake. And he spent the rest of the time trying to get her back into bed. And she spent the rest of the time telling him to fuck off.
It would change the dynamic, and I think that would have been a mistake.
I think all of it was a mistake. Mm-hmm. Oh, God. Rick brings up When Harry Met Sally. Oh, you want to talk about two lunatic characters. You were completely, radically different. And yet they had that whole thing, but that entire movie is supposed to be about them getting together anyway. So then it makes sense. Oh, that's a good point. Brett says he feels like Lucifer only went off the rails when they dragged in other entities. I haven't read the graphic novels or any of the comic books, so I don't know. I don't know what the standard group of deities was. One of the things that I was always concerned about with that is once they moved past just having a single angel or a single demon running around, then it starts to get completely insane. So I can understand that.
Talking graphic novels.
Berserker? Not familiar. Oh my
Oh,
God. Keanu Reeves. Huh. Interesting.
We supported the Kickstarter on that, and oh yeah, it's just about as bloody as one might imagine.
Oh, that's a good point. You want to talk about a character that has all the depth of a puddle? John Wick.
John Wick.
John fucking Wick. Okay. And it doesn't matter. He is boring as shit, besides the fact that the things he can do. It's everybody else in that world that's over the fucking top.
It's true.
Every single one of them jumps out at you. John Wick is another thing. He's actually
He's the foil. John Wick is the foil for all the other big personalities.
Yeah.
so in that case, though, if he's the, I'm going to go back to the oatmeal. If he's the oatmeal on this entire character smorgasbord, do people maybe like him because since he is oatmeal, they can turn him into whoever they want? He's the most easily identifiable character. And that way they're like, yes, we can root for the guy because he's the one who's the most like us.
I don't know that I would say that's the case. I think the reason he is so popular in that is that he is so bland as far as his personality is, that his skills stand out to the fore,
Right.
and that only enhances the action movie thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
He really is in a lot of ways. He's the dumb. He's the idiot, good looking protagonist that's running around beating the shit out of people, but that's all he is. And that's not fair. That's oversimplifying it.
I still need to catch up on my watching. I have not watched it. I'm way behind.
I don't think
I got other stuff.
that he's the idiot protagonist. He is the force of nature that drops justice on people, that drops karma on people that deserve it. And so people watching the John Wick movies go, oh, those people did such horrible things. They deserve to have horrible things happen to him. And he is the horrible thing that happens to them.
What they don't exactly get into with that is the horrible things he must have done as an assassin.
Terrible things.
Terrible things. So while we're watching this guy eat through his his colleagues, one has to wonder, since he has such a infamous reputation, exactly
The Baba
what
Yaga.
he did. Exactly what did he do, and how many horrible things did he do? That's something I always think about. It's like, yeah, John Wick's really cool. How horrible of a human being was this before he, found his wife who died of cancer? How awful of a human being was he?
See, that's one of the things about the character is he repudiated his lifestyle. He turned his back on it and he walked away from it. He changed his life until they pulled him back in. Their events, their actions stirred the storm against them.
You're trying to tell me he's Michael Corleone?
Maybe. I've seen reviews come out for the one of his that's coming out in a couple of months, John Wick 4, and the reviewers are saying it may be the best action movie they've ever seen, pacing-wise and content-wise. So I'm looking forward to it.
At some point in my at some point I will have to get all those stupid goddamn movies so I can watch them beginning to end, have a marathon with them for the stupid. Because I just think it'd be so much fun, but there will definitely have to be alcohol or other things involved. Lots of CBD. Because, you have to have that. Don't look at me like that. John Wick has no plot, just action. Now, buy a ticket.
So, I mean, if that just means that I sit on the couch with a pile of yarn and I'm watching it and analyzing beats, that's fine. I'm good for that.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of movies and series that you get to the third or fourth or ninth, 10th, installment, and you're like, I'm here to see what the characters are going to do and to see how they get out of the hole that the writers are going to put them in. That's Fast and the Furious. That's all I'm doing. I'm watching huge chase scenes and figuring out who's going to get screwed over next and how they're going to get out of it. That's it.
Oh boy. Well, you
Although
got
I
any?
do want more Helen Mirren because Helen Mirren's awesome.
Because Helen Mirren's the best.
Yeah.
We've been at this for like an hour,
Yeah.
Holy
which
crap.
means in 10 minutes we have to deal with those Patreon buy me a coffee people. So we should probably wrap this up. If you've got a comment or question about this show, you can send an email to show@deadrobotssociety.com. You can find me on Mastodon at Paul_E_Cooley at VYRSE.social. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast to see so many cats. Oh my God, way too many cats. You can find us on Facebook, listeners, the Dead Robot Society Facebook group, or Terry manages all the madness. If you want to support the show, you can find us at patreon.com/DRS podcast and buymeacoffee.com/DRS podcast, where for just a couple bucks a month, you get access to exclusive content and all sorts of other things like we're about to have in just a few minutes. And the $10 level, you get your name read. And our $10 patrons are Tony L. Joy, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, Isabel Cushy, and Tim Niederreiter. Thank you to all of our patrons for making this show possible. And now there's one more thing we have to talk about, and that is the fact that we still will not get into a 12-step program. We are caffeine addicts, and we get our caffeine from, what's it called?
It's not called this.
There we go.
Because my mug is being washed.
I gotcha.
Gotcha.
I got the shameless plug for awesome coffee right here.
Visit corpsecoffee.com and check out their array of boutique teas, wonderful array of coffees, their weird webcomic, and tell them DRS sent you. Visit corpsecoffee.com and get the dead in your cup. And with that, I think we're going to get out of here, and we will definitely talk to you all later if Corpse Coffee is great in the nebulizer. Gee, thanks for that. With that, folks, enjoy your weekend. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hope you had a good time, and we'll see some of you in just a few minutes.